We're going to get going because it's a few minutes after 6, and I want to be respectful to everybody's time that's on here now. My name is Paul Hanks. I am in the SUNY Delhi Alumni Association and Advancement Team on campus. This is our first SUNY Delhi Zoom session focusing on the academics and a day in the life of a student, in this case, a mechatronics students. We have about an hour scheduled for the discussion, which I think is going to go by pretty quickly. So we're going to kind of jump right in. I'm going to introduce our panelists, and it's a pleasure to introduce the four of them. First is Professor Mike Miller, himself a SUNY Delhi alumnus and really the founder of Mechatronics at Delhi. Next, another faculty member and Delhi alumnus. You'll notice a pattern emerging here. Shawn Cobstill. Shawn, your class of 2015 or 2017?
2017.
2017, I'm sorry. I made you older than you should be. Who returned to his alma mater, Delhi, and the mechatronics program after working in industry for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then we've got two outstanding mechatronics students. Actually, they're both scholar athletes. First one is Jaylynn Sheppard, a senior, who will be speaking with us while donning her Delhi softball uniform from the team bus. They're playing Wells College. Maybe you can give us an update as the game progresses. She's an outfielder and probably has a pretty good arm. Hopefully they're not going to miss you. And then we have Seth Bywater, a sophomore who is on both the cross country and track squads. And incidentally was recently selected to receive the Chancellor's Award for Student Excellence in 2021. Only the third mechatronics student to have earned this impressive distinction. So we've got some real stars on the panel. And so let me just start by relating a definition of mechatronics that I found by doing a simple Google search, and it's just 6 words: technology combining electronics and mechanical engineering. I'm going to turn to Mike Miller. It's obviously much more than that, Mike. Can you take a little bit of time and provide a sketch of what mechatronics is all about, and what this discipline is at Delhi, and how it prepares our graduates and our students for their careers? And I should add also for those ever important internships.
Oh, yeah. Yes, thanks, Paul. The mechatronics degree actually started back in 2010. It sort of coincided with the need to revamp our existing CAD program, and also to answer industry's need. In June of 2011, I held a industry inquiry and invited all sorts of industry in, and asked them a simple question: what does tomorrow's employee look like, and what skills do you need them to have? And the resounding answer was that tomorrow's workforce has got to go in with multiple skill sets. And as they were listing those skill sets around the room, I was looking at them, and it just occurred to me, this is the way that engineers and technicians have been educated in Germany and Japan for decades. And with the skill sets that they had listed, the industry inquiry listed, Delhi already offered those as individual courses and degrees by themselves. So they became so many, there was no way that we were going to be able to do this in just 2 years. It had to be a 4-year degree. So that is how it was developed. This degree, and we tell industry all the time, this degree does not belong to us. This degree belongs to them. We just happen to be their caretakers. So they're the ones that tell us, look, this is the trend going into industry. This is how your curriculum's got to go for this course or that course. And we respond in kind. You gave the definition of mechatronics. We didn't know what we were going to call the course in the very beginning. And I have to give credit to my predecessor, Joe Greenfield. He's Professor Emeritus. He said, you should call it mechatronics. And that name immediately stuck. So when people say, what does mechatronics mean? There's that textbook definition. We at Delhi have our own, and it's innovative automation. If it's mechanical and you want it to move, we can do it. And our students take it right from the design concept. They work with the engineers in designing. Then they go into the procurement, the actual fabrication, the population. And when I say populating it, that means getting the components, wiring. They will then troubleshoot, and they will then commission the actual piece of equipment, and they will maintain it. So in a nutshell, our students are that they're that utility tool that can do anything. And industry, when we introduced it to industry, again, mechatronics down south, they have it as a 1-year certificate or a 2-year degree. At Delhi, we took it a step further, and we did it as a 2+2. Our students get an associate's degree in mechatronics design, but then we go that next level and we do the mechatronics technology. Now, the nice thing is we were the first ones in New York to introduce mechatronics. We were the only college, as we know right now, that does what we do. No one we are such a heavy hands-on applied degree that no other college does that. The engineering is theory. Industry has nicknamed us the blue collar engineers. And that is what our students do. And it's funny, when we started soliciting for internships, they didn't know what it was, but the minute they got one of our students, it's almost like M&Ms. You can't just eat one, they want more. And the name and our reputation grew. And as of right now, there are more jobs available than we'll ever be able to produce students for. And that is, in a nutshell, how the mechatronics got started.
Super, Mike. That's a great overview with still some detail about where it's come and how you prepare students and how industry played a role in helping craft it and relating their needs and desires and so forth. Shawn Cobstill, you have a kind of a unique experience, having been a student and a graduate of the mechatronics program, and also now you're back in a teaching capacity. What was your experience having a mechatronics major and a Delhi degree in hand when you undertook your job search in 2017? Did it open doors for you? How was it received and perceived by industry?
Yeah, Paul, thanks for the question. When I did my internship, at Kodak in Rochester, New York, and I was in the film division. At the conclusion of my internship, I had almost an open offer. They really wanted me to stay. based on the work that I have done and their other interns that they had from the SUNY Delhi Mechatronics program. So they gave me an offer to basically do whatever I wanted within the plant, but the money was capped at what I could make due to their union and their pay structure. So I considered it, but I continued looking elsewhere, and where I ended up going was JMA Wireless in Liverpool, New York. And they had some interns prior to me taking a job there as a full-time employee. And they also had a fellow graduate that was working there at that time. So they knew of the mechatronics program, and they knew about what the students are that come out of Delhi, and what we can do in our skill sets. So that definitely gave me a leg up in looking for jobs to, go out and do what I wanted to do, and be able to do everything I learned at college.
Great. Thank you, Shawn. Now let's turn to Jaylynn Sheppard, senior mechatronics student, and Seth Bywater, a sophomore. Jaylynn, can you talk a little bit about why you chose to attend Delhi, and along with that, did the program Mechatronics play a role in your decision making?
Yeah, so actually my senior year of high school, we were going through the process of filling out our applications. So I had originally intended to attend a whole different school around where I lived. And that week, someone from Delhi came and presented to us. And since we were a engineering school, they introduced the mechatronics program. And I was like, well, I kind of like this. And then I just added it to my list real quick right then and there. I did look into the program, but I was like, this is exactly what I want. Because all I knew was I wanted to do engineering. And then as soon as they started talking about what mechatronics had to offer, I was like, yeah, this is for me.
Did you compare the program at Delhi with other schools and just find it was more hands-on, which is what you wanted? Or, what was some of the differentiating elements in how you made your decision?
It was definitely more hands-on, but also had that variety where I didn't have to actually decide what type of engineer I wanted to be right out of high school. So I could have all these different experiences like welding, machining, coding, all those things, and I get to actually learn it and then choose which one I feel works best for me, what I want to do.
Fantastic. Great. Seth, talk about your journey from high school to Delhi and the mechatronics program. Please.
Well, when I first visited Delhi, at the time when I was still in high school, I thought I wanted to do architecture. That was really what my visit was for. And I didn't really know what mechatronics was, but I was talking to Coach Monroe, the cross-country coach, and he said I should look at the mechatronics program. And that, the architecture program didn't really impress me, but the mechatronics program really did. And after learning about what it was more, I was surprised it wasn't a bigger field. I was surprised there wasn't more focus on it. It has such far-reaching applications. There's not much you can buy in a store or online that hasn't spent a lot of time in, the domain of a mechatronics engineer. And this specific program pulled me in because it's not really a generic degree. I'm going to leave college with a lot of marketable skills and projects to show for it, like hard work. And yeah, I think there's a lot more substance to this degree in this field. And also since I saw a statistic the other day that 40% of the world's electricity is used in industrial settings. So I think as we move forward, trying to fight global warming and trying to be more efficient, I think it's definitely going to be a growth field. There's going to be more and more demand. So yeah, it's nice to have, like Jaylynn said, the ability to go into different kinds of fields and be able to have some skills that are widely applicable, but there's also a guarantee that there's always going to be demand.
Right, thank you. One of the two good professors on this Zoom call or session gave me a little insight into what schools you were considering. There was some pretty impressive names on that list, and yet you made a decision, I guess, with your family, with your parents, with your you know, in your mind to come to Delhi. Talk a little bit about that, and you know, I mean that's really saying something when you have some choices to go to some name institutions. I'll let you name them if you feel comfortable, but you know, that's saying something. Talk a little bit about you know, why Delhi and not those institutions.
Yeah, well, like I said, one of the things I was thinking about was architecture, but I was really just looking, I knew I wanted to do some kind of engineering, but I wasn't really sure what. And I visited a few schools. I have to add a disclaimer that some schools I was mostly visiting because they wanted me for track. But yeah, there were some schools I was looking at that had engineering degrees and they had really good ones, but they seemed kind of generic and not very focused, and also very, I mean, not that theoretical engineering is a bad thing, but not a lot of hands-on skills, not a lot of practical skills really. And you know, like so many people nowadays graduate with a mechanical engineering degree, but like going to a school and having never heard of mechatronics, I mean, it just shows how valuable they are. Yeah, it just seemed more focused and specific, which I really liked.
Right. Well, one would wonder, Mike, you know, how can an engineer at any point, even today, you know, learn their craft without having, you know, getting into, you know, having a drill press or designing something hands-on, you know, referencing, you know, Jaylynn made reference to some of these things. That's something that is a differentiating factor. You gave the example the other day of a mechatronics student or two having a summer internship, I think at Cornell, and some company employee high up from Europe came over and said, was really impressed with a mechatronics student from Delhi of all students.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you even mentioned that because I heard from them today. They are following up. One of our alumni is actually working there in their.
Is this a Siemens?
Pardon me?
Is it at Siemens?
No, this is at Chess in Cornell University.
Okay. Okay.
And they're the ones, you know, they deal with the beam line, and I'm not going to get into the science of it, but they're one of the, I'm going to say they're a premier beamline research institution in the world. So you've got engineers and scientists coming in from around the world to use this beamline, which is underneath the football stadium. And I think it's about a 1/4 mile in diameter. It's quite large. Heard from our alumni, he said they're all a talk right now, and it's, hey, they were talking about bringing on more than just 2 for this coming summer because the demand, and the other engineers and scientists said we get one this time. And so it's very complimentary, and it's a testament to the kids that go there. And as the student said, he said the difference is between a Delhi mechatronic intern compared to most interns is that our students just have to get acclimated to their environment, but they could hit the ground running. they're ready to produce first day. And an engineer manager from IBM told us that when they take interns, that typically they operate at a 50% loss. So that means if the student works 40 hours a week, they can only bill 20. And they're willing to take that loss as a learning, you know, hey, to give the students a chance to learn. They said, and then along came a mechatronics student from Delhi, and it was our very first one we've ever tried. And after the first week, we were billing 70%. By the following week, for the rest of the summer, they were able to bill 100% of his hours. Wow. Because of the skill sets that he came in with. And we hear this time and time again with our, with our hosts that wind up taking our students, and even the companies that wind up hiring our students. They want more. And again, we're just getting our foot into the industries. And every year, with the help of Kristen DeForest, who I'm so glad is here, Kristen's been helping me field the incoming phone calls for FaceTime to recruit our students. And we're just trying to coordinate times that work for our students' schedules. And it's funny, industry says they'll take any time we give them in order to get FaceTime to get a chance to try recruiting.
That's impressive. That's great. That's great. Thank you, Mike. Let's go back to Jaylynn and then Seth after that. In light of this last year and counting with the COVID pandemic, given that a great deal of mechatronics is hands-on, how have you carried forward the program, over now, the third semester, last spring 2020, fall 2020, and now spring 2021. Jaylynn, how have you, made accommodations to be able to still get that hands-on experience?
It was kind of hard, like the initial 3 semesters ago when it first started, because we went from being in person in labs to just nothing in less than a week. So it was oh man, it's I was doing welding and machining at that time, so it's all super hands-on classes. So it's I had things that I wanted to just design and machine, and I just never got that chance. Still probably gonna do it now, but we'll see. And then yeah, for programming and stuff, it was still I could just use Codesys, so I just downloaded that and was still able to get the hands-on in that aspect and test it and have my final project be something that I actually got to make and see work. And then the semester after that, I was on internship, so there wasn't really much of anything that I felt I was really missing out on. It was a little bit of a challenge just to set up the internship and actually get it, because I was still in talks with the company Motion Labs that I did my internship with prior to everything happening. So rather than just kind of giving up, I was keeping my options open, had a couple other interviews and stuff. And I actually got pretty lucky where the day that I was supposed to decide, I had the 2 companies both offer me the position. And I was okay, well, I think I want to do the programming side of things. So that's what I ended up going with. And so since I was doing a more programming thing, I was able to actually still get the hands-on work. I didn't get to go out on any jobs and stuff because there wasn't any actual work to be done. But they were actually working on a new product that they were trying to design. So I got to do a lot of work and coding and actually learn a ton of things in that aspect.
Fantastic.
Paul, if you don't mind, I want to interject because I think Jaylynn is being a little humble here. Motion Labs, Jaylynn was our first student that we've ever placed in that company. And the work that she did, she's painting it over with a broad brush. It knocked our socks off. As a matter of fact, Jaylynn came back with information that helped us develop our program for next year. And Jaylynn is also being pretty modest. Jaylynn wrote the instructional manual for the new software and the things that their motion labs are now implementing. She did teaching. She was instructing other people how to do it, whether it's via video and most importantly, she wrote the instructional manual. So extremely impressive.
That is quite impressive. Jaylynn, you're a young lady in a STEM field. What are there other bright young women in the program? How do you see that part of it? I'm talking from my position as a father of 3 daughters. Talk a little bit about how you felt going into that field.
I mean, I knew it was like more male dominated, but like I've got a bunch of brothers, so I can hold my own. And like all the girls that are like in the major with me, they're all just like super cool, super like competent, and like honestly, like nothing against like the guys, but I feel like girls have like, like we really like think things through. Like we're not gonna do it the hard way just to get it done. We're gonna think about it, be like, all right, I can do it this way and it's gonna work way better. And that's what we're gonna try and do. Whereas like the guys, maybe they'll just try and do it their way, just run right at it type thing.
Love it. Well, we'll have to have a separate Zoom session there to debate that out over time, but great perspective. Seth, talk a little bit about how the last year, again, and counting, has been for you, as a sophomore, actually in your freshman year, the end of your freshman year, the start of your sophomore year, and now the second half of your sophomore year, how you've adjusted to things.
It was pretty hard at first, going from doing everything in person to doing a lot of it online. It really just takes something. You have to somehow find some intrinsic motivation, which for me usually means finding something that is interesting, that I like want to try and want to learn about. So over the summer, I got into a couple projects. Like I also learned some coding. I delved into C++ a little bit, and I bought a kit where you build a 8-bit computer all on breadboards, just with wires and basic components, and that was pretty fun. And doing stuff like that is easier for me. I have to find stuff that I want to do, that draws me in, not that I have to make myself sit down and do. But I think it's not all been bad. Having to step away a little bit from doing everything hands-on, it's teaching me to visualize things a little bit more and understand the underlying principles of what we do in labs and how things work.
Right.
Which I think is going to pay dividends in the future. It just makes everything else more intuitive. Learning things theoretically in your head does translate to in-world skills. So it hasn't been all bad. And now that we do have labs in person, I'm seeing that a little bit.
Good. Thank you. That's great. Hey, Shawn, can you talk a little bit about the faculty perspective of the adjustments that had to be made over the last 3 semesters? Such a hands-on program that Mechatronics is, and how you had to kind of adjust to the reality of the pandemic.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. That goes for everybody. It's been especially hard on the students, I think, and we know that, and we really try to make that not the case, but there's only so much we can do. Luckily, in the last 2 years, we have updated to new PLCs in lab. So I teach in the controls lab, so that's what I can speak to the most. We've updated to new PLCs, And with the new PLCs come new software. And with the new software comes the ability for students to be able to do more of their work on their own. Whereas in previous years, when I was a student, we weren't able to get an official copy of the software that we used. So there was sometimes some versions floating around, but there wasn't an official copy that we had that we were entitled to. So we weren't able to do work at home. We could write it out on paper, but we weren't able to do our labs or work on our labs at home. But now with this new software and the new PLCs that we do have, our students are able to get purchased from the bookstore versions of the software. And they're able to and do their work in lab, for lab at their room. Or, in lab half the time, they're just on their laptops doing their work instead of using the computers in lab. So that has made it much easier. And we use that in class too. So in class, they're able to kind of listen to me talk and see what I'm doing on my screen, but also do it on their screen. So they're able to, understand what I'm doing, but then also do it themselves. So it's, I don't like, they learn better that way, right? They learn better by doing it than just like listening to me talk for an hour. So they get to actually do it on their screens and actually implement it themselves. So that has been a huge help, the new software, for our students and for us as faculty. Right.
Let's talk a little bit about another facet of both of your backgrounds, Seth and Jaylynn. Seth, talk about how you balance, your academics, a very demanding academic course load with your athletics. Both semesters. In the fall, it's cross country. In the spring, it's track and field. Delhi has recently moved into Division III. It means tougher competition, possibly more competition, more opportunities as well. How do you do that with such a demanding academic program that you have in front of you?
Luckily this year it's not so bad since we have less competitions, but the real kicker was when I got a job this year working at the Starbucks on campus. Now I got another thing on my plate, but it's not, time management is really the key. As long as I'm not, it sounds like a lot, but really I spend part of my day in class, then part of it at practice and part of it at work. But really, as long as I'm not sitting around on Netflix all day, it's not that much. So time management really. And it just comes down to planning things out, planning ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that come with having kind of an engineering mind of being organized and kind of a process that you follow, if you will?
Yeah, definitely being able to visualize things in my head definitely helps it out. I can plan out my day easier. And then also having been an athlete for a long time, hard things become easy when you're running an hour every day. So yeah, having the engineering background combined with athletics helps me out a lot.
Yeah. Well, I myself went to what is an engineering university that will remain nameless, but I had a lot of friends. I myself was not an engineer by training or by education, but I had a lot of friends and knew a lot of people. They had a reputation of being, very quiet, bookish, sometimes had a hard time kind of expressing themselves. These are some of the cliches over time. You both are so articulate. You're so comfortable and you express yourself so well. Before we get to Jaylynn, Mike, talk about, just having students who, can use the right brain, right side of the brain and the left brain, are analytical, but also can think critically about things and reasoning and putting, sentences together and making sense of it all.
All right. Yeah. One of the things I do want to just visit with too is that throughout our students' educational journey at Delhi, we force them to multitask. You've got to be able to juggle multiple projects at one time. So they don't have the luxury of just working on one project for one class and that's it for the week. You've got a couple other classes that also have projects going at the same time, and it's not enough just to get it completed, because then it gets critiqued with the student, and they are to go back and they are to fix it. And we don't care how many times, especially in the first year, we don't care how many times it takes for you to do it. You'll do it, and it won't get signed off until it's correct. The sophomore, junior, senior year, well, no, you don't get multiple times. Yeah, you get a couple of times, and then that's it. But along with the skill sets, the hard skill sets that we do teach these kids, the other skill set that's often overlooked is the communication piece. So every year, freshman right up through senior, these kids have to do documentation and presenting. And it could be in front of just faculty, their class, the entire major. And by the time they go out into industry, they're ready to present. And again, I'm using Jaylynn as an example because Jaylynn had to do this at her internship. It was not a choice. She had to do it. She was the only one that knew what she was implementing in with the company. So by the time they leave, kids communication skills really depends. I mean, every student is different. But by the time they leave, they will feel more comfortable in presenting and communicating in front of a large group. So yeah, that's an important skill set.
I just want to add on to that.
Please, Shawn.
I did an extra internship after my freshman year. I did an internship at a local place in Oneonta. And one of the things that I brought with me was that communication skill and the knowledge that, just because something is designed well on paper doesn't mean it's going to work well in the real world. So I was a design engineer intern at a place that made medical trailers. And I was the one that would take my designs and I'd go talk to the guys on the floor, the fabricators or the electricians or, just the guys installing the trailers or putting together the trailers, the assemblers. I would take my designs and go out to talk to them and say, hey, this is what I want to do. What do you think? Is this going to work? And at that time, had taken my freshman year classes. So I knew mechanical stuff. I didn't know the electrical stuff yet. I didn't know welding. I didn't know machining. So I didn't know everything that there was to know, but I knew that those guys knew it. So I would take my designs, I would go out to the floor, and about 2 or 3 weeks after starting it, I was there for a summer. About a couple of weeks after starting that internship, those guys would be coming into me and saying, hey, Shawn, we need to design this. Can you help us with this? Or we need this to happen. Can you make this change for us? Because I was able to communicate with them and kind of talk the talk and walk the walk. But I knew what I knew and I knew what I didn't know. So I wasn't trying to overstep anything, but I was communicating with the people on the floor, and that went a long way for me. And I think our students we try to tell them that, we teach them that. So that, like Mike said, communication is key.
Yep.
Shawn's a perfect example of it, having gone through it. I will tell you, industry was a little sore that we coaxed Shawn back into the fold to teach. We had a meeting with the company that he was with, and believe me, that was the first, when they saw him, that was the first jab they made back at us. You took him. Yeah, and it was part of the plan the whole time. Shawn is a great addition to the faculty. He walked through all the steps. He did everything that that we asked him to do. I hate to use this expression, but he drank the Kool-Aid, and he trusted the steps, and it's paid off dividends. And again, Seth is well on his way, and Jaylynn she's ready to fly right now. I mean, she is industry ready to go. So I have no reservations with any of the skill sets that our graduates leave with. I have no reservations.
Great. Thank you both, Shawn and Mike. Jaylynn, so you're a senior, and you've been playing softball, but you also run track, right? Am I correct? Yeah. Okay, so they're both spring sports, or is
they're both spring.
Okay, how do you do that along with mechatronics? That's quite a full plate, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it's a lot, but I kind of like it. So I don't like being bored, like downtime.
Yep. So is it about just organizing yourself and making sure that you have obviously practice time for both sports is practice time, but being able to focus on the books and that kind of thing is critical, on your own and with projects that you're working on.
Yeah, it is like really just like how Miller was saying with like communication and everything. Like I'm really like open with my coaches and be like, hey, I really got to focus on this class right now. So could I maybe do my run a little later, or like I'll take some extra fly balls tomorrow to make up for what I missed. And then it's like they're really cool about rescheduling things with me. Whereas like the track coach, he'll meet me at the track a little earlier so I can do my runs and then go to softball practice and then do whatever I have to do for class that day. But like my other thing is I just have to like how Seth was saying, where you really like plan it out. Like I just like to plan out my day, where I always have like my classes and my work as like my main priority, where I'll try and get those things done before I even go off to practice. That way I'm not worrying about, oh man, I still have to do this paper. It's just like, all right, I did it. I'm done. Now I can go run. Great.
Jaylynn, how have you evolved as a person, over the last 4 years? Were you comfortable in the public eye, if you will? How do you think not only the knowledge that you've acquired, but as an individual, how have you kind of come along during those 4 years?
I'd say I've definitely gotten better. Like I know Miller would probably agree with me, whereas like my freshman year, I was the type of person who would sit in the back of the class and whisper the answer to the guy sitting next to me and let him say it rather than me just say it out loud. And like for presenting and everything, like it's been like a full 180 of like, man, I've actually stepped up and I'm really willing to like talk and be articulate and stuff, where it's like I'm not as shy as I was before. Like freshman year, I was not a talker. Like I'm not really much of a talker now, but there's a huge difference, I feel.
Sophomore year, you weren't much of a talker either. I remember the first day walking into the lab, I said, "Hi, Jaylynn, how are you?" "Good." "How was your summer?" "Good." "Okay." So
I think you're doing just fine right now, Jaylynn.
Yeah, I'd say
definitely have grown in that respect.
Let me just throw out to those that are viewing, the panelists, if you've got a question or a comment, please go to the chat section and submit that. We've got just about 10 minutes left before we're going to hit the lights out. So feel free to do that. Michael Sullivan, I think, is going to take a look at some of the questions and will help me parse through them. Let's see here. So both Seth and Jaylynn, you've kind of talked a little bit about the program, obviously, and the impact on you. Seth, last week, I think it was, you told me a little bit about some of the plans that you have for your career, and obviously, nobody's going to hold you to it, but you've got some pretty interesting and remarkable kind of aspirations and plans. Do you feel comfortable elaborating or just talking a little bit about them and kind of rounding the edges off?
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is how I told you about my plan for graduate school.
Yes.
It's been something I've wanted to go to graduate school. I've known that for a while, but I wasn't sure if I would stay in mechatronics or go into robotics or what. But I found one program that was really interesting. It's called Controls in Green Mechatronics. It's actually in France. Like Miller, you were saying earlier that engineers in Europe and Japan are, they've been engineering like this for a long time. And so the program I was hoping to get into is, it worked with Siemens and Schneider a lot. And so it looks really interesting. It focuses a lot more on energy efficiency and modeling mechatronic systems. And it also gets more into robotics, which interests me a lot. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. There's a question for Jaylynn from one of our viewers, I'll call them. Let's see, what are you looking for in an employer or career as you finish up your academic program at Delhi?
I'm not like 100% sure like what I want to do, but like recently after my internship of like getting involved in like coding and everything, I've kind of been like really interested in that. So I've honestly like on the side been working on like Python, just kind of learning like JavaScript and everything on my own, just to kind of see where I can take that, because I feel like that's the direction that I want to go with like my career, because I just found it like really interesting. Like I love, you have a problem, you can figure out your solution, and then once you have your solution, you can even go further and like simplify your code, maybe get it as like perfection as you can possibly get it. And I just like that trial and error type process.
Great, thank you. I guess this next question is for Mike and Shawn. How would transferring to mechatronics after 2 years of welding technology work?
The nice thing about Delhi is with the mechatronics degree, it's a 2+2. So that means that you get your associate's degree in an applied technology, and welding is one of the applied technologies. So in this case, with a welder, they have a lot of fabrication skill sets. So they're mechanical, they've got a very good mechanical foundation. So what we do is we adapt their bachelor's degree to fill in and backfill the electrical side. So in reverse, an electrical student coming in to our degree for the last 2 years, they're very heavy with the electrical. So now we have to backfill with the mechanical. So their degrees are almost mirrored one another. And that's how it works. But the key to it is we prefer students, it is written that in order to get into the bachelor's degree, you have to have an applied, an associate's in applied sciences. That way you have the gen ed background in order to enter into the bachelor's degree. So with a welder, it's not that bad. Shawn?
I was just going to throw in there, we have had a number of people transfer in from welding and be very successful in mechatronics. They do well, they pull good grades, and they do well getting jobs in the industry after graduate too.
Right.
Thank you both. Let's see. Question for Mike. You know, the program is about 10 years old. It's evolved. What are you hearing from industry now about what they need over the next 5-10 years? I've heard Seth talk a little bit about you know, green technology. Imagine there are other areas that are you know, highly specialized, that are looking for the kind of students that we're educating and putting out there as potential employees. How do you see mechatronics at Delhi as we have it evolving come the next 5-10 years?
Well, that's a really good question. And just to be clear, it's been 10 years in the development of the Mechatronics program. We're approaching 10 years. It's actually been in existence since our first class that we graduated was 2016. And again, the Mechatronics program, the beauty is that technology changes every 6 months, so we have to adapt. Our immediate goal right now, which we are now implementing, we're hoping it's going to be implementing this fall, is to get into cybersecurity. All right. And this is really going to be getting into Shawn's realm. And I'm going to let him go ahead and give us the scope of how the whole cybersecurity, along with the SCADA systems, relates to the PLCs.
Yeah, so the PLCs, and the SCADA systems and the HMIs are basically your control of how everything works. But SCADA systems, by and large, are based on the internet. So we actually just developed a partnership with a company called Ignition. And Jaylynn, I don't know if you know about this yet, but you're talking about Python and coding. And so this company called Ignition, they make SCADA systems, and we got this partnership with them. And their whole SCADA system is based off of tag-based to integrate with PLC, and Python to make your screens, to control what your screens do and what the buttons do. So we are working with the business department to bring in IT cybersecurity to the Mechatronics program, so that our students can learn about the threats and how to protect a SCADA system from bad actors, so that you don't have these people hacking into your system and changing your services, really.
Mm-hmm. Nils, I'm not sure. Can you ask your question, because I'm not sure I'm going to do it justice by just reading it. There's context there, and you may want to add to it.
I'm competing for students, and I have some very competitive and very promising female students. But the thing I find that them entering Mechatronics, my Mechatronics robotics program, is they tend to end up going to the New Vision engineering program, because nobody knows that females are working in mechatronics. And it would help a lot if there was something with past Delhi grads or current Delhi students that we could have access to, that potential students could talk to and say, you know what, it's new. Students in high school don't know about it. But to be able to talk to somebody, like I'm sitting here listening to Jaylynn, and I had one of Mike's students, was probably 2 years ago for our pilot program for the robotics. And I know that Miss Ladderette was there and did very well. That would be huge for me to be able to access that type of mentorship to someone who is trying to decide what to do. Because I think the perspective is that it's just a grunt type of work, and it's not. It's you're taking this and changing it into, as Jaylynn said, let's find a better way of doing this. You don't have to be this muscular person and this jarhead, if you will, that just comes in and can lift up the entire machine, where Jaylynn can say, that's very nice, but did you realize that there's a hydraulic lever over here that would have lifted it for you? And that's the type of thing I'm looking for, is that type of maybe mentorship to possible students, or as I gain students, to be able to have that going forward so they're not afraid of pursuing this. I'm working very hard on the Delhi side with the Perkins grant for non-traditional students, but I find it's even harder on the high school side. And so that's one of the things I was looking at developing with you guys is, do you have a growing list of graduates who could say, hey, you know what, I was where you were at, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I pulled the trigger and I did this, and I'm glad I did it. Yeah. And that's the type of thing that I think could help people who are on the fence, because there's, like you said, there's really not a whole lot of information out there about what it is. There's some misinformation, there's a lot of confusion, but what I try to show is what the vast opportunities are. And having listened to Jaylynn and Seth, and of course, I stole your student the other day. I hope you don't mind that I sent down there. Mick came from my class, but he took the day to talk to my students, and it was awesome because they got to see what was going on, just the next step up. And that's what I'd like to try to be able to do, is have that available for students. I can sit there and tell them, like I've said before, I've had younger people come in and talk to my students, because I don't know if you've noticed, but Mike and I have about the same amount of hair. And when we're sitting there talking to students, they're like, this dude's got no hair. He's got a gray mustache. So what does he really know? But then you get, good looking people like you have up there. I mean, I'll have to give it to Shawn. He even, he looks a little bit younger, even though you made him older than he was. Students see that and they say, here's a guy that's really not that much older than me, and he's telling me something. Yes, Mr. Anderson told me this, Mr. Miller told me this, Mr. Warner told me this, whatever. But then they see someone who's closer to that. And I think that's a valuable resource for students to be able to see and say, there is something out there, just like what Seth is saying and stuff, that the amount of opportunities are out there, and what it's all about is what I'm trying to help change. And
Right.
hopefully I can use that.
Nils, it's funny that you mentioned that. The females that we've had through the program. Well, first off, I want to just say in a scope right here, the Mechatronics, the students in the Mechatronics program are very, very protective of this degree, and they pretty much look out for the class underneath them. They are a very homogeneous group that they almost look at it as a type of fraternity sorority. You made it into the Mechatronics program. They even call themselves, we're the Mechatrons. That's it. And this is on their own. But the young ladies that we've had come through the program, yes, they do belong to like a club even on campus that promote women in STEM. And it's so funny you mentioned this, but one of our current seniors, she's working at a company in Oneonta, and she started a podcast with another female intern that she used to work with that now is working cross country. And it's called Literally Actually. And it is Women in STEM. And they interview other interns, engineers, fabricators, and what their experiences were and how they got involved into the STEM. And I'd be more than happy to share that link with anyone. I just listened to it today. Wonderful. And this is something that they feel is very, very important. And they did this all on their own. I had one of our graduates took it upon herself to make a booth at SUNY Cortland to promote women in STEM and use the mechatronics. And she did such a good job. She did it for 3 years straight. She worked it out with the SUNY Cortland faculty that she wanted to do this. She lived in that area, and she did such a great job that she got the dean of our division, or School of Applied Technologies, Dean McDonald, and she got some female faculty to join her. And they had their own booth up there, and it was a huge success. So as far as mentoring, or you just tell us when and where. I'm telling you, I'll have to beat them off on who gets to go down to talk, because I have a lot of willing participants.
Great. We're a little bit over, but I want to slip this last question in from Jonathan Crandall, and just a couple of quick answers, maybe from Shawn or Nils or Michael. What kinds of opportunities, jobs can you get from your experience with mechatronics? That's a simple question that can be opened up wide, but who can touch on some of the major elements of where you go with your experience in mechatronics?
Go ahead, Shawn.
Yeah, you really depends on where you want to go and what you want to do. I can tell you from my experience, after graduation, I was a automation / manufacturing engineer. I was basically taking machines from concept all the way through to on the floor in production. That was my job. I have a lot of classmates who went on to be mechatronics techs or automation techs. Two of my classmates traveled the world, like basically on a monthly basis. They go to a different country, which is pretty cool. They're out in the field putting machines together, working on machines. Electrical techs, mechatronics techs, automation techs, manufacturing engineer, automation engineer, mechatronics engineer, and we even have people now that are a year or two older than me that have moved up into upper management of engineering management after completion of their master's degree, and have stayed with companies and just keep moving up the ladder. So really the possibilities are endless of what you can do with a mechatronics degree, especially a bachelor's in mechatronics.
The industries, just to add on, the industries is manufacturing, pharmaceutical, food and beverage, processing, any type of processing, and power generation. So we hit all the major veins of what keeps our economy thriving. There's a mechatronics person involved.
Well, on that note, I just want to thank very sincerely. I know it's a not a labor of love. It's just something that's in your DNA, and it's thriving at Delhi in a tremendous way. I'm just so impressed with our faculty and our two students that were part of this discussion. 3 faculty members. I got to throw Nils in there. Special thanks to Mike Miller and Shawn Cobstill, and then our two students, Jaylynn, Sheppard, and Seth Bywater. I think Mike and Shawn, your emails are available. If someone has follow-up questions, they can ping you messages, and you can get back to them. But hopefully this is the beginning of future conversations that span, a great deal of industries and types of students that want to explore mechatronics at Delhi. With that, just want to thank everybody for being part of it, and wish you all a great evening.
Hey, Paul,
Thanks, Paul.
Yes,
if
Yes.
I could add one thing,
sure, Nils, please.
I'm not like Mike and Shawn. I got this little tiny pea brain, but I thought about how do I make mechatronics make sense? And here's a little thing I came up with. Think what has to happen, plan how it will happen, design how it will happen, make it happen. That's basically what mechatronics is. You the full gamut. You got to figure it out and you got to make it work. And it's just a little thing that I kind of tell my students, because there is so much that's out there. So I just thought I'd throw that in.
No, that's great. That's great. That might have to go on the Mechatronics page, the front page there. But thanks for sharing that, Nils. Again, thank you all for being part of this. It's a great way to take our Zoominars off on with a great start. And again, we'll hopefully see you all on campus in person soon.